Hello, my name is Jordan Gibbs, working in the Career and Technical Ed here at Gull Lake High School, and I've been learning a bit about Python programming and development, and I thought it'd be nice to share a bit about that with you. So first off, I'm gonna open up this application called PyCharm and GitHub. Now it's important to note that PyCharm is known as an IDE or Integrated Development Environment, which are basically environments that are good for programmers and stuff like that. Like it could run commands, it could type commands, all that stuff. PyCharm is one of them. Now, starting off here, um, I'm in my welcome branch, which is my first initial thing that I made. We see I have initial print welcome string messages. Um, I named it that because it matches up a bit about what I did here. You always want to have your names of your commit messages look sort of what you have in your program and what it does. As we see here, I have it printing two messages, and if I hit F10, it will run that program. Two print messages, as we see, it's two escapes, so that's what it does. Moving on to the next commit, we check out this commit, open back up PyCharm, and we see that we have something different here. Now, we could see something different here, which is import libraries here. Import time equals sleep equals 1. Um, what is library? A library is basically a pre-written function or pre-written codes that allow us to use various functions. Um, for example, time.sleep. We know that it's a function because it has two parentheses around it and that dot right there. I'm sure there's something different, but that's what I kind of see it as. So I have time to sleep is equal to 1. So this function goes up to my called variable, which is time to sleep, and that variable is equal to 1. So if we print this, well, it's basically just going to make this print statement wait 1 second. So if I hit F10, we see that it waits a second before actually running. So that's a bit about what that one does. Now we have an ellipsis, so I'm going to check out this commit. Um, Go to PyCharm, and we see that I have two functions called. I have systems.write the message prints slash r I mean slash backslash r prints a carriage return first. Um, Now, what is a carriage return? A carriage return in Python is a way to move the cursor back to the beginning of the current line when printing text. So we have this r slash plus message, so it'll go kind of back up here and just print that. So now that we have that figured out, we have this ellipsis print operating system booted up, retina retina scanned access granted. So if we just print this, what does it do? We see that it's in a while loop. So while x is not equal to 20, which it's not up here, then it'll continue to do that, and we see that it adds 1 each time. So um, when it gets to 19 or and whatnot, it'll stop printing, and it'll print this. So it's like x equals 20, then it'll print that. Now, moving on to the next, we see that I merged a bit of branches here. I'll get into merging a little bit later in this video. I'm not gonna worry too much about that now. I'm gonna go into my gasoline branch here and see what I did in here. So we see that I have my initial print showing me that it's the gasoline branch, and I imported random, which basically just imports a random, it gets a random choice. I mean, there's a bunch of different things that random can do, but for now we defined a function using def and gas level gauge with the two brackets, curved brackets, I should say, and we have this colon here so that I can be nested inside of it, and it gives me this block of code. Now this gas level list is a list, and I know that it's a list because it has square brackets around it, and each item in the list is separated by a comma. Um, Now we have current gas level is equal to random choice gas level list. What's the gas level list to? It's equal to a list. So it's going to choose a random item out of this list, and it's going to return it, and we printed what it gives me. So if I do an F10, it's going to say empty. If I do it again, it's going to say low, quarter tank, empty, a bunch of different ones if I just spam it. So that's how it started off. It's going to get really interesting at the end of the code. So if I do check out this next commit, um, I'm using both of them. I have gas level gauge, which was the one I used before, and I have a list of gas stations. Now, of course, this is a kind of pretend situation. Like, say, you were in a car. Cars nowadays tend to have sensors to tell if your gas is low, empty, yada yada yada. But now we're gonna assume that this function right here would have GPS and tell us what's the closest gas station. But we don't have that technology right now, well, in my class, so I'm just kind of using it as pretend. So if I print that, it's gonna print a bunch of different like places where you could get gas. It's kind of like the one above it, which chooses a random choice or random item out of this list. Moving on to this one, create a gas level alert. We move down here and I have another function, miles to gas station low, miles to gas station quarter tank. These are all variables. We see that it chooses a random number between 1 and 25, and we see that another one chooses any number between 25.1 and 50, because if it's a quarter tank, it probably wouldn't matter. Like, it'd probably be the gas station would probably be farther away, right? So we print those out and we call it. Now we could print those out in here and we could call it here. Notice how the last one we had it to where it printed outside. We just printed the function. So if I hit F10 again, it'll give me a bunch of it'll give me two numbers because I printed two variables. So, and we notice that this one's between 1 and 25, and this one's between 21 or 25.1 and 50. But I didn't want all these numbers here, so I made another edit, which I'm going to show you now. So if I go in here, I have a round tool here. I'll tell you what that is in a second. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move on to elifs, or this elif for low. I'm sorry for that pause there. Now we have if and elif statement. I just added an elif statement. So if it's else if, that's what elif means. It's basically another way of saying if. Gas level indicators equal to low. And one thing that I want to point out is, why does this one have two, and why does let's say a variable like this have one? Well, that's the difference. This is naming a variable or declaring it, right? And this is saying that it's equal to a value. So that's the difference. So as we see, if or elif, else if it's equal to low, it's going to print your gas station is extremely low, checking for Google Maps for the closest station. Closest gas station is, it's going to call list of gas stations, which is up here. It's going to call that function, and which is that many miles away. So it's gonna call this one right here. So that's a little bit about that. One important thing that like to note is Git Kraken. It's a GUI for GitHub. So instead of looking at all these files and stuff, like for example this, instead of looking at that like through a terminal or whatever, it's like user friendly, so it's easy to understand basically. And it syncs with your GitHub account, and which I think is pretty cool. So, like the push, uh, I have to push all these every single time I make a change, and I also have to make a commit message every time I make a change. But I have to push it onto the cloud. Why would I do that? Well, let's say that if some hurricane happened, and it was on my computer, and everything was local and not pushed up to the cloud, I would lose all of that. Which is why I think it's important to make backups again, um, so that you have something in case of catastrophe. So moving on, I want to go to this one, show a little bit about that one. So what does this do? I basically just finish this off. Elif. If your guess is half tank, 3/4 tank, that's what that does, and the code should be basically finished. Else, why do I put an else there? Well, if I notice here, this isn't the complete code. As we see here, it was made in GitHub, which GitHub doesn't really correct anything. I can't run it in GitHub, so I find out my mistakes later. So, but I programmed that in GitHub, because like, what if I didn't have Git Kraken or PyCharm with me? I could always go to the cloud and do that. But as we see here, I made a mistake with this indentation error, and if I try to run it, it will see that an indentation error was found. So I want to go back up, and I see that I fixed that indentation error, fix stable. Notice that I didn't put stable here because it didn't work. So I want to go back to that, check out this commit, and we see here that indentation error was fixed. Now, why is an indentation error? Because it should be nested inside here and not nested inside one of these different things or different statements. So now if I try to run it, it'll say gas tank is full, warning you're on empty, and it sleeps for those print statements. Notice how I didn't make it sleep here because it doesn't. There's not two really, so I figured it's not needed. We call the sleep function again, which is all the way up here. Import time, import sleep. Again, another library which imports a function. So now moving on, we see that I merged the gasoline into beta test dev. Now, a little bit I want to talk about that. Since I already merged welcome into beta test dev, there was a problem. There was something called a merging conflict. And what that is I have two different programs. If I try to put both of them in there at the same time, they're going to be like, what the heck, man? I don't want to work with that guy. So I had to fix that merge error. But I'll show you how to do that a little bit later. So I'm going to go in my weather branch. And we see here that I have my print function, I have my print weather branch, and I have my import libraries here. And I have my function here, define, and it's the same thing as I did before. I'm just making a list, making it random choice, and returning that value. So that's a little bit about that. And I'm going to check out this commit, if elif vars, or VRS, which is vehicle response system, if you didn't know. A lot of cars have that nowadays. And if we move down here, weather alert is equal to weather. So I said if weather alert is equal to snowy, then it's going to print this. Now, you might notice that, well, these are all kind of the same, aren't they? Well, yes, because I just kind of copied and pasted. And I just changed the name of, or just changed the item each time. I didn't change this yet. So, what did I do? I went in here, updated VRS function with else and else. So if I want to go in here, I'm going to see that they're all different now. Like this one says National Weather Service updated your alarm by 60 minutes. This one, National Weather Service forecast this, and VRS is disengaged, VRS is engaged, 30 miles per hour, 70 miles per hour, a bunch of different stuff. Now I wanna show you what this does. F10, weather branch, see that it has been engaged, and it says that it's blizzard weather conditions. So that's a little bit about what that does, and if I just keep on pressing it, we have a bunch of different ones. Now if I go back in here, I updated the syntax. Why did I do that? Because if we look very closely here, I didn't have this spelled correctly. Like if I go back in here, check out this commit. I spelled engaged with an M, which is bad syntax. Always want to go through your code and make sure everything is spelled at least pretty correctly. Um, and I updated that, which gives me engaged. Um, it's just good practice to make sure everything is spelled correctly, especially for jobs and whatnot. So I want to go check out this commit, which is my last commit. And we see here that I made it sleep for 1 second before printing the second statement. And that's basically to wrap it up for this kind of weather branch. So if I do F10, it'll wait a second before printing that statement up, and that's what that does. Now that we've moved past the weather branch, one thing I want to talk about is this beta test dev. Well, what is it used for? Why are we merging that beta test dev into everything first instead of just merging it into the main? Well, beta test dev is kind of used for testing out programs before they're actually brought out to the people. Like for example, Tesla. We wouldn't want them to have a mistake in their code, and have their cars malfunctioning. So they put that into a beta test dev and they test out what they do first. And then once we make sure that everything is stable, we merge that into the main, which brings that out to the whole wide world. It's also good to note that beta test dev, you kind of fix mistakes that you made, like what I did here. When I merged merged gasoline into beta test dev, I have to move around the programs a little bit to make sure everything works good. Um, and it's just used for testing and whatnot. Obviously, beta test dev. So now I think it's time to show you how to merge. So I'm gonna go into my weather branch, and if I right click on here, what does it say? Merge beta test dev into weather. I don't want to do that. That would just cause a whole bunch of conflicts. So I want to click into beta test dev, and I want to right click on weather, and I want to merge weather into beta test dev. So I'm going to click on that. What do we get? A file conflict was found when attempting to merge into beta test dev. Well, we don't like that, so we're going to go in here and see what's wrong. So if we look in here, we see that I have my import libraries here, and welcome library, or welcome branch I should say, and I have a bunch of different things in here. Now one thing I want to note, we have 2 import libraries here. Well, if we look all the way up here, I already fixed that. We already have all the libraries we need up there, and we don't need to call them again. So I'm going to delete that. Again, the beta test dev branch is to fix your code and make sure it looks nice and neat. Um, if I wanted to, I could go up into this code and change this to 2, just to make sure everything is spelled correctly. But this equal sign right here, these bunch of equal signs, this shows me that this is where the new code has been added. Everything below that. So I deleted that because that's what's causing a problem, and I also want to delete this right here, so that it works. All conflicts should be resolved. And it seems like that's, oh, almost missed this head here. We don't want that in there either. So we want to delete that. We see that we have all of our libraries here and all of our code here. And I want to see if everything works correctly. So if I do an F10, we see that it's booting up, which goes to the welcome branch. It's booting up, going through the ellipses. And then it goes to the gasoline branch. If I scroll down, it goes to the gasoline branch, and it says it's on empty, low, where the gas station is. Then it goes down to the weather branch, which starts right here. And it goes down, and it chooses one of these options, and it chooses an if and elif statement that responds to the item. So yeah, that's what this does. But one thing I notice is these spacers here, they're not even, which I don't think that looks too pretty. So I'm gonna go ahead and fix that. So I'm gonna copy and paste that, or not, well yeah, copy and paste that. So I'm gonna go all the way up to my gasoline branch, and I'm just gonna paste that. And I'm going to see if everything works correctly one more time, because you can never be too sure with these things. You always want to have a perfect kind of code if you're going to be sending that out to cars. And we see here that everything works pretty good. So now I'm going to go back to Get Kraken, and I'm going to say that I marked all these resolved. Now we see that it gives us a commit message on its own. Merge branch weather into beta test dev. Commit and merge. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go and I'm going to right click on here. What does it say? Merge main into beta test dev. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go in my local, and I'm going to local main, and I'm going to right click on beta test dev, and it says merge beta test dev into main. That sounds correct, so I'm gonna do that. Now we have that done. Now I would push that to my GitHub, but I've already done that on a separate virtual machine, so I don't really need to do that. But you would push it so that it's up on the cloud, your code is stored on the cloud, so that no disasters happen. Now it's important to note that when I went to programmed in GitHub, I had to go out to GitHub and pull that. I pulled that program from GitHub. That's how I did that. But we see here in my main, I would have pushed that. Now I'm going to show you what my GitHub looks like. So I'm going to open up a new tab, and I'm going to show you here. So what do we have here? I'm in my Infotech Center, which is the name for everything. Like if I go here, you see that my file that I'm in is called Infotech Center, and even in here, this is Infotech Center 2024, Infotech Center 2024. So I'm going to exit out of that, and we have Infotech Center 2024. To get there, I just had to go to my account and choose which one I wanted. And I went and I have my main here in my grimaceshake.py. That's just the name we chose for our program. So we're gonna click on that.
I need your assistance.
And we have all of my nice, beautiful code here, which I think is pretty good. Now, one thing that I didn't really talk about that I kind of want to talk about now is that you never want to program in the main branch. Why is that? Because that's what's going out to the people. Like you wouldn't want to have a mistake in your program and push that out to the people. Just like recently, we had AT&T go down because of a programming incident, which I don't know if that's the exact reason why, but um, that was pushed out. And yeah, we just have so many incidents, programming incidents that could be prevented. So it's just important not to program in the main like that, which is um, also known as the like production branch. So that's a bit about that. And if I go through my other branches, gasoline, see that it has my gasoline stuff. Weather has my weather stuff, and welcome will have my weather stuff. I mean, welcome. My bad. Now, the question is, why do I have a GitHub account? Um, well, my GitHub account is like if I have an employer that wants to see my code online, I want to have some way to show them like what I've been doing. So or I recommend having a GitHub account if you're a new developer, um, kind of learning stuff, so that you could show your employees or not employees, employers, that you have the skills to make this or the skills to pay the bills. Now, I think that's about it for me. Thank you for watching, and I hope you guys have a good day.